Number 10. Mama Bear versus Mountain Lion. 69-year-old Robert Biggs was hiking in Northern California in 2012 when he spotted a bear and her cubs along the bank of a stream. After pausing for a few moments to admire the bear family from a safe distance, he turned to leave. A mountain lion suddenly attacked him from behind, knocking the senior citizen to his knees. Biggs tried to fight off the cougar by hitting it in the head with a rock pick he was carrying. Unexpectedly, he received some help from the protective mother bear, who grabbed the big cat by the neck and wrestled it to the ground. After a brief scuffle, the mountain lion backed off and ran away, and the bear calmly returned to her cubs. Biggs was injured, but not badly enough to let it interrupt his day. Once the chaos was over, he wrapped his wounded arm in a t-shirt and went gold panning. His wife Suzanne tried convincing him to go to the hospital when he came home covered in blood, but he refused. He told ABC News that he believes the mountain lion was targeting the bear's cubs and that he got in the way. Before the attack, he and Suzanne never really worried about a potential run-in with a dangerous animal. While Robert continued his outings into the wilderness, Suzanne said that the incident had made her think twice about returning to the area. Number 9. Gas station guard dog versus armed robber. Justin Ireland was working at Holly's gas station in Saco, Maine in 2015 when a man entered the store and asked if he could use the phone. When Ireland said no, the man pointed a gun at him, shoved him, and demanded all the money in his drawer. The employee's 3-year-old pit bull boxer mix, Thor, was at the store with him that day and immediately sprang into action when he saw his owner being attacked. He started going after the would-be robber, who quickly fled the scene when he realized there was a guard dog on duty. Ireland told local station WGME that his boss liked having Thor around because he looks like good security. But he never trained the dog to respond to a threat. And until that day, he always wondered how Thor would act if someone tried to rob the store. Needless to say, the pup's heroic response to seeing his guardian in danger answered that question. Number 8. Brave Beluga. In July 2009, the Polar Land theme park in Harbin, China hosted a free diving competition in its 20-foot-deep Arctic temperature whale tank. The 7 participants were not allowed to use breathing equipment, and the winner would be awarded with an opportunity to apply for a job as a whale trainer. During the contest, 26-year-old Yang Yun's legs cramped up in the frigid water, and she was unable to return to the surface. She essentially felt paralyzed, and the water pressure near the bottom of the pool made swimming even more difficult. Yang started to drown, but was saved just in the nick of time by a beluga whale named Mila, who grasped onto the woman's legs with her mouth and pushed her to safety. Mila's quick thinking likely saved Yang's life and spared her from being underwater long enough to sustain brain damage from a lack of oxygen. And because belugas have small teeth, Yang wasn't injured during the rescue. Polar Land officials praised Mila's good deed, describing the beluga as a sensitive animal who works closely with humans and could tell something was wrong when she saw Yang in distress. Number 7. Rabbit to the rescue. In 2004, Simon Stegel fell into a potentially deadly diabetic coma while watching TV at his home in Cambridgeshire, England. His wife Victoria assumed that her husband had simply fallen asleep after a long day at work, but the couple's pet rabbit, Dory, could sense that something was wrong. She jumped on top of Simon and began pawing at his chest and kept looking at his face as if she was trying to get him to regain consciousness. At first, Victoria yelled at Dory to get off the furniture, but the rabbit persisted, and she soon realized that Dory wasn't misbehaving. She called for help, and paramedics revived her husband at the scene. Simon had lived with diabetes since childhood, but he later said that he didn't experience any warning signs of a medical emergency before he found himself unable to move or speak. He credited emergency responders and Dory with saving his life. Britain's largest rabbit enthusiast organization, the Rabbit Welfare Association, recognized Dory for her heroism by granting her honorary membership to the group, a privilege that's typically reserved for humans. Number 6. An unlikely ally. Joanne Barnaby and her friend Tammy Caudron were picking mushrooms in the remote wilderness of Canada's Northwest Territories in 2016, when Barnaby and her dog Joey were confronted by a wolf. It was growling and baring its teeth, and its hair was standing up, forcing Joanne to retreat into the woods to avoid it. The wolf continued to stalk the woman and her dog over the next 12 hours as they wound up deeper and deeper into the wilderness and further from her car. With the animal showing no signs of giving up, Barnaby started to lose hope of making it out of the forest alive. By then, she had been reported missing, and a search effort was underway, but rescue was nowhere in sight. She was dehydrated, swarmed by mosquitoes, and exhausted to the point of almost collapsing when she heard a mother bear cry out for her cubs, who she'd become separated from. Normally, a person avoids coming between a mother bear and her cubs at all costs. But Barnaby knew that by doing so, she might draw the bear's attention to the wolf, and perhaps she would attack it, giving Barnaby a chance to escape. As the stranded civilian cautiously approached the bear's cub, she heard a sudden crashing sound. It was the mother bear and the wolf entangled in a vicious brawl. With the wolf finally distracted, Barnaby fled and began making her way back to civilization. It took her hours to reach safety as she drank stream water and wrestled past thick vegetation, and she was still scared that she wouldn't survive the ordeal. When she and Joey finally made it out of the woods, they had been gone for 16 hours. Some people doubted Barnaby's story of survival, or even accused her of making it up, but authorities confirmed that the experienced outdoorswoman and lifelong Northwest Territories resident had gone missing in the area and found no reason to think she was being untruthful. Number 5. LifeSaving Sea Lion. 40-year-old Kevin Hines is an activist who dedicates his life to promoting suicide prevention. He found his calling after trying to take his own life by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco in 2000. He was at an all-time low while combating bipolar disorder and psychosis. Most people who try to end their lives this way unfortunately succeed. Out of the more than 1,600 individuals who have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, only 35 have survived. Many of them later said that they immediately felt a desire to live as soon as they realized they were still alive after the impact. Hines was one of those people. He was seriously injured and at risk of drowning as he found himself bobbing up and down in the frigid waters of the San Francisco Bay. Suddenly, something hit his leg. At first, Hines thought it was a hungry shark and tried punching the animal. But it was a sea lion, and it continued to circle beneath the young man, giving him a boost to the surface whenever he needed it, until the Coast Guard arrived. Since his rescue, Hines has made it his mission to share his unlikely story of survival in hopes of inspiring others to see that life is worth living, even in their darkest moments. Number 4. Captors vs. Big Cat. In June of 2005, 7 men kidnapped a 12-year-old schoolgirl in a rural region of southwestern Ethiopia. The abduction was part of a plan to force the girl into a marriage she didn't want and was obviously too young for. A week later, the captors tried to relocate the girl in their efforts to evade police when 3 lions attacked them and kept them away from their victim. The big cats remained at the girl's side for around 12 hours until the police finally arrived to escort her to safety. When the officers got to the scene, the lions simply left and went back to the forest, as if they somehow knew she was in safe hands and that their work to protect her was done. The girl received treatment for her injuries that her captors caused, but said that the lions left her untouched the entire time they surrounded her. Lions aren't known to instinctively protect humans. If anything, they have a reputation for attacking people, leaving experts curious about the unconventional decision to guard the kidnapping victim. One researcher theorized that the girl's cries may have resembled the meowing sound that cubs make, and that it influenced the lions to not harm her and to take on a somewhat parental role. Sergeant Wandimu Wadeo, who participated in the rescue, told NBC News that if the lions hadn't guarded her and she had remained in the custody of her captors, the situation likely would have had a much more devastating ending. Number 3. Stranded swimmer surrounded by dolphins. When a man's belongings were found abandoned on a beach in Ireland one morning in 2021, authorities began searching for him. For 12 hours, they looked for any sign of movement in the water with no luck. They were starting to lose daylight and were becoming increasingly worried that they wouldn't find the man. Coxswain Finbar O'Connell, who assisted with the rescue under the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, calculated where he thought the stranded swimmer would most likely be based on the area's tides. His calculations were a critical part of the rescue mission, but he received some unexpected help when he finally spotted the man thanks to a group of dolphins who had surrounded him in the water. The swimmer was exhausted and suffering from hypothermia and was taken to a hospital for treatment. He told his rescuers that he had tried to swim out to a destination 5 miles from where his belongings were found. He was incredibly lucky to survive. Speaking with the Irish Independent, O'Connell concluded his thoughts on the rescue by saying that maybe the dolphins somehow helped the man throughout the ordeal. Number 2. Protective pup saves owner's life. Erin Wilson was walking her dog Ava in a remote part of northwestern California earlier this year when a mountain lion lunged at her from out of nowhere and clawed at her shoulder, causing excruciating pain. She called out for Ava, who had fled the scene but was quick to return and defend her owner. The 55-pound Belgian Malinois fearlessly attempted to take down the considerably larger big cat, but soon began to cry out in pain as the mountain lion clamped its jaws down on her head. Wilson tried to separate the animals by throwing rocks at the cougar and attempting to gouge its eyes out, but the feline remained undeterred. Not knowing what else to do, the distressed pet parent went to a nearby road and flagged down a passing motorist for help. Sharon Houston pulled over and found a piece of PVC pipe in her car that the women used to beat the mountain lion with as it began dragging Ava off into the wilderness. The big cat finally gave up and ran away. Both Wilson and Ava received emergency treatment. The canine's injuries were severe. Her skull was fractured. She had a punctured sinus cavity. Her eye was severely damaged, and she began having seizures while waiting to be treated. Ava initially pulled through, but her condition once again worsened after she went home and passed away. Wilson is devastated by the loss of her canine companion, but she's grateful to Ava for saving her life. Number 1. A whale of a warning. Marine biologist Nan Hauser was swimming off the Cook Islands in the Pacific in 2017 when a humpback whale suddenly appeared and began repeatedly bumping into her and trying to carry her on its back and head. The gargantuan creature also tried to put Hauser beneath its pectoral fin several times. She had never encountered such strange behavior from a whale before. Thinking she was under attack and knowing that the whale was perfectly capable of killing her even if it didn't mean to, Hauser began to fear for her life. After exiting the water and returning to a research vessel, she spotted a 15-foot tiger shark lurking nearby and realized that the whale may have been trying to protect her from it. Being a scientist, she knew that the story was hard to believe and admitted that she might not believe it if she hadn't experienced it for herself. A year later, the whale that rescued Hauser was spotted in the area. She recognized him based on some distinct markings and because he swam up to her boat and specifically paid attention to her. Hauser was even more convinced that the whale remembered her when she jumped into the water and he greeted her like an old friend. During the tearful reunion, she thanked him for protecting her when she was in danger. There have been other recorded instances of humpback whales protecting humans and other animals from predators, but it's rare. In 2009, a humpback whale was photographed protecting seals from other members of its species, and in 2017, a pod of humpback whales stopped some orcas from attacking baby gray whales. The species has a natural instinct to protect their own young, and it's believed that this somehow triggers them to sometimes become protective of other animals as well. Thanks for watching. If you were stranded in a remote forest and had a choice between walking straight towards a grizzly bear with cubs or an angry moose, which direction would you go in? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.